Nature Song, Sweet Honey in the Rock, here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. This is Climate Countdown. We're broadcasting live from Copenhagen, exclusively the 2 weeks, the only daily global TV, radio, internet broadcast that is coming out of, well, the Bella Center, right here where the climate talks are taking place. Our guests right now are Wahu Kaara. She is a Kenyan global justice activist, and Bill McKibben, co-founder and director of 350.org. But I want to return to a minute. Walking in the hall yesterday, I had a chance to speak with Decima Williams from Grenada. She's the chair of the Alliance of Small Island Nations. She's the Grenadian ambassador.
What Grenada needs and what the 40 members of the small island states that are in the AOSIS alliance, what we need is the recommitments under the Kyoto Protocol, the second commitment period, because in that we will be given the commitments on targets to reduce global warming and targets to fund it, that to correct the damage and to preempt further damage. We need a legally binding outcome that holds these countries in the Annex 1, the major industrial economies, who have been principally responsible for this damage to the atmosphere and to the planet. We need them to continue to take their responsibility for another period after 2012.
That is Decima Williams. She is the spokesperson here for the Alliance of Small Island Nations. She's the chair of that group. You also spoke along with them at a news conference, Bill McKibben. Why is this group so important?
Look, Amy, the last time we talked was right before this big day of action we had in October, which turned out to be, as CNN said, the most widespread day of political action in the planet's history. 5,200 demonstrations in 181 nations. That's what allows, to a large degree, people like Decima Williams to have a platform now. There's finally a global movement around this world behind climate change in every country, and so they're able to stand up for the science. I mean, in this hall, it's people from Africa and from the small island nations that are the ones standing up for what we know the science is. It's the Americans, to a large degree, most of the other developed nations, trying to duck what we know the science says. That's why she's so important, and it's why this mix of inside and outside is so important.
Wahu Kaara, can you talk about how you went from working on issues of debt in a developing country in Kenya to where Obama's father comes from, President Obama's father, to climate debt and what that means?
Both economic debts and climate debts, which is ecological debt, is very, very connected. Because as we got into indebtedness of financial or economic debt, it is also reflected on how the environment was also plundered. And like in Kenya, for example, many projects like the World Bank funded and created debts in making big dams. Those dams compounded the problem of the climate. And in order to engage for justice, and justice in a comprehensive mindset, we must see both economic and ecological debt on where the interface and how they are related, so that when we are addressing the issue, we are able to address the issue with a very concrete manifestation in really stating what the problem is. And that's why debt and climate are one and the same question as far as justice is concerned.
Explain how you experience climate change in Kenya.
Well, even before the debates of climate justice started, many of the Kenyan people began to witness and to recognize and to state how seasons are changing, how they cannot follow the pattern that they have been used as far as when to plant and how to plant, which is a very, very important aspect of our lives because we are predominantly agricultural people. And ordinary people would say, well, we don't know what is happening. And I would really want to quote one mother who said, I think there is something that the North are doing because the sun no longer behaves the same way. So if an ordinary mother can say so, she is expressing issues that the scientists also write so intensely and in a very mystified manner. So the whole question of climate is real. The droughts, which have also the effect on no food, and therefore people are dying. And in particular this year, Kenya has experienced a very, very drastic drought, and people, animals have died. Lakes are drying up. We have a whole lake, a fresh lake, Lake Elementaita, which has totally dried out, which has affected the ecosystem of nature, like the birds, the flamingos, birds. So the whole question of climate change is connected to the source of livelihood.
What about snow in Kilimanjaro?
It's already melted. So, and even in Mount Kenya, the snow is melted. And people observe these things and express. And what is so important is that ordinary people do discuss and talk of how nature has changed. And they are looking as to why has nature changed. So it is very easy to introduce climate justice debate to the ordinary people because they already have the agenda as a debate. They only need to understand what are the scientific argument that is already given in matters of how we have utilized our own environment, especially in relation to the fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions. And as I speak, even now, the greatest concern for people is how they can reclaim the traditional knowledge that they know in matters of how they guarantee their livelihoods as far as seeds and management of the soils is concerned. And they are saying, we want the soil, not the fertilizers. I've heard many of them saying so. Meaning they don't want the intensive agriculture way of growing crops. They want subsistence which is connected to them.
You know, interestingly, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger just held a news conference right outside our window. And he said that this summit is as a result of grassroots movements. And Bill McKibben, I wanted to go there for 1 minute before we move to Alberta, to the tar sands. The issue of 1.5 to survive, it's a mantra around here, what people are saying, 1.5 degrees Celsius. Explain that, what the limits are.
350 and 1.5 have become the two numbers that define this conference, and they're always linked. We need 350 parts per million CO2. If we start moving in that direction, there's some chance we'll be able to limit temperature increases to 1.5 degrees. That's not good news. We'll raise temperature 1 degree already, and that's melted the Arctic. We don't want to go any further, but there's enough momentum to take us there. That's right. This is desperation time. And it's not being treated that way by the United States and the other big powers. It's being treated precisely that way by the most vulnerable countries. And they are finally pointing out that they're in a fight for nothing short of survival. When Mohammed Nasheed, the president of the Maldives, addressed this big roaring audience yesterday at the big 350 rally, he kept saying, these are the three most important words you will ever hear, 3-5-0, because for us that means survival. That's what people in every corner of the world, in October and then last weekend when we had 3,000 vigils around the world with people spelling out those numbers in candles all over the planet, that's the point that people are trying to get across.
I want to thank you both for being with us. I want to thank Bill McKibben, co-founder and director of 350.org, and Wahu Kaara. She is a Kenyan global justice activist. Your group's People's Movement for Climate Change, why you're here right now. And back in Kenya, your organization is?
Kenya Debt Relief Network.
The Kenya Debt Relief Network. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. This is Climate Countdown.